Okay, Kakadosh Boker Tov, we're going to be continuing on Daf Daled Amud Aleph 4A1. Okay, this is Masechet Pesachim. Just that way people, if they weren't awake. It says over here like this, Rav Barachua de Rabbi Chia Barachte. So it happened that the nephew of Rabbi Chia and Ben Achoto also the nephew. So it was basically the two different nephews, right? Whether it was the Ben Achiv, so the son of his brother, and the son of his sister, okay? So basically what happened is that the brother of Rabbi Chia from the father got married to the sister of Rabbi Chia from the mother, and they had a child, okay? So that's Rav. Rav was the nephew of Rabbi Chia on both sides, whether it was from the father or from the mother. Kisalik lehatam, right, when he came out, right, kasher ala Rav l'sham, when Rav came up to there, which means that he went from Bavel to Eretz Israel. Amarle, he came and he said, Aivu Kayam, is your father still alive? That means Rav did not want to come and give a bad thing. So Amarle, he went and he told Rabbi Chia, Ima Kayemet. Ima Kayemet, is the mother alive? Meaning, why aren't you asking on the mother? Why are you asking on the father? Right? She's also your sister. Okay? So Amarle, he comes and he says, Ima Kayemet? Amarle, he comes and he tells him, Aivu Kayam, if you already asked, right? So why don't you ask on your brother? Amarle le Shameh, so he told his Shamash, Chalotz li min alai. Yeah, he has to take off his shoes. Ve'olech kelai acharai lebet hamedchatz. And he has to go to the bet hamedchatz. Everyone understood the story, right? So one more time. Yeah?
But the connection.
Because you don't want to give bad advice. You don't want to give bad news. You never want to open up your mouth for bad. Whether it is in profane language or giving bad news. Well, obviously, where was yeah. So he says, yeah. So he says like this. So he says, what happened is that you had a person that he was the nephew, mitzad both sides. So imagine his half brother, right, got married to his half sister. Okay, so you have a person that his brother from the father got married to his sister from the mother. Okay? You understood the case. That means you had a person that he was married. They're not connected.
But stepsister
right?
and brother cannot get married.
They're not connected.
I understand.
They're his step.
I understand. But I thought we learned we cannot.
Again, one more time. You didn't hear me. His stepbrother and his stepsister, but between the stepbrother and the stepsister, there's nothing. There's no connection. One more time. You have. There's no father, no mother. Right? You have a man and a woman. They had a boy. You had a man and a woman. They had a girl. They both got divorced. They get married to each other. They had Rav. This Rav has a stepbrother or a half brother, if you want to call it, and a half sister. That brother and sister have no connection between each other. They don't share the same father and they don't share the same mother. It's only Rav in the middle that he shares the same father with the man and the same mother with the woman. Okay? No. Rav is the half. He's not like, but the outer ones, the ones that they could get married, that's what they do. That's exactly what they did. They got married to each other. So now, right? No, so now says the Gemara, what happened now is that it says over here, Rav Chia comes, right? And he tells Rav, right? Aivu Kayam, right? Which Aivu was his father, the father of Rav. Yeah, so he comes, is your father alive? Now remember, who's his father? His brother. So he comes, he doesn't want to say that he died. So what does he say? He says, 1 second, Ima Kayemet? Why are you asking me on my father? Ask me on my mother. So now 1 second, why didn't he answer on the father? He understood. Why is he asking now? What's he telling me now? I'm asking on your father, you tell me the mother. What's going on? So then he says, okay, fine, you're right. So is your mother alive, which is my sister? So he comes and he says, 1 second, why are you asking me on my mother? Aivu Kayam, ask me on my father. So therefore, what did he understand? The fact that he was pushing him again and again, what did he understand? They both passed away. So immediately Rabbi Chia went and he told, right? He told his Shamash, right, that he wants to take off his shoes because of the avelut of his brother and sister, because now it's both brother and sister. They both passed away, and he didn't know about it. And they're brothers and sisters, right? So now, because why? Because remember that even on a half brother or a half sister, a person still has to do avelut. Okay? Even on a half brother, half sister. This was actually just a question that asked me. Somebody asked me that. I don't remember how, a few months ago. They told me, it's only a half brother, right? I don't remember who it was even.
If two parents got divorced, got married again, and they didn't bring any kids, but they have kids before, so those kids, vice versa, need to seek shiva?
No, they have nothing to do with each other.
Exactly.
Nothing to do with each other. No, but here this yeah. So what happened? So now all of a sudden he comes and he says, take off the shoes. Why? Because of that. Now, but what? But then he says, but take the kelim after him to the Bet HaMirchatz in order to finish off the avelut. Right? Basically, we have to remember that avelut for a shemua rechoka is only 1 day, which means, right, that if a person finds out that within the 30 days, right, that somebody passed away, they have to do avelut, what's called shemua kerova, because since it's so close, it's so fresh, so they have to do the full 7 days. They have to do everything normally. After the 30 days, avelut is only 1 day. It's called shemua rechoka. So if a person, let's say, didn't find out that their parent or somebody, whatever it was, passed away within the month, after the month, they only have to do 1 day of avelut. Right? So that's what, well, obviously it was a long time ago. And the father and the, meaning the brother and the sister, both passed away. The guy had no clue. So since he had no clue, so therefore he only had to do 1 day of avelut. Yeah, there was only, by the way, you should know, this actually just happened recently. There was a case of a person that passed away, and his wife is not 100% there. Right? She's not 100% with it. So basically the psak that I got is that for her sanity, right, even if, let's pretend we will tell her about it, because sometimes you don't even tell them about it, right? For example, there was a famous case where there was of Rav Eliashiv, that when his daughter, Batsheva Kanievsky, the Rabbanit, passed away, they never told him about it. And that was the psak between Rav Zilberstein and Rav Chaim Kanievsky. They never told him. So the only time he was actually even going to be able to find out was Erev Pesach, because Erev Pesach was once a year that she used to come to visit him physically. She used to come and visit him. Think about it. She was living in Yerushalayim and he was living in Bnei Brak. And she only visited her father once a year. Why? Because if that was the time that, if not, it would be too difficult for her husband, that she couldn't leave her husband because he wouldn't be able to learn. Yeah? So what happened? Was she said, and then what happened was right before Pesach, he became sick and therefore he wasn't even able to realize it. So he never actually found out. And that doesn't only happen to him. That happens to a lot of people. That sometimes they hide from them. They conceal from them the avelut in order for their own sanity. You understand? So therefore here,
but if they
right?
find out later, then they have to do 1 day.
1 day. So therefore, the question that was asked to me was that, let's say the husband passed away. So now the wife, do they tell the wife or not? So I said that I don't think it's going to help anyway to tell the wife. She doesn't really function 100%. So for what's it going to help? And it's going to probably cause it even worse. But even if you are going to do it, you have to do it with a psychiatrist, like little by little. You can't just tell it in one shot. You have to break the news little by little. You understand? And all of a sudden, he's not feeling the best, and this and that, and then it's continued to, and then by the time you understand, like a very slow reaction. By the time she probably herself already realizes, like that's it. But what was the main thing? To make sure that it was after the month, because that way, if it's going to be after the month, so then anyway, even if she would need to do an avelut, it's only an avelut of 1 day, and not avelut of 7 days. Okay, so shema min atlat. So we learn from this case 3 different things. We learn, number 1, shema mina avel asu b'ni'ilat sandal, that an avel is asu b'ni'ilat sandal, and even by a shemua rechoka, which means even though he heard after the 30 days of Yom HaMitah, he's still not allowed to have shoes on for that 1 day. Shema mina, we also learn a second halacha. Shemua rechoka ina noeget al yom echad. Shemua rechoka is only 1 day. So that's what we just said right now. Right? When we said it outside, now we're reading it inside. And number 3, shema mina miktzat hayom kekulo. That to do with avelut, a little bit of the day is the entire day.
Wow.
Right? So therefore, right? And even if it was only 1 day of avelut, which means he went and he told him, take off his shoes. He took off his shoes. He started avelut. Miktzat hayom kekulo. Miktzat hayom kekulo means miktzat hayom kekulo. We do it all the time. For example, somebody just passes away, yeah, and they bury them. Remember that the shiva only starts miyom kavura, not from the time of the death. Okay, yeah, but until then he's anunayim. So therefore, right, it starts only from the time of kavura. When it starts the kavura, right, and they bury, so then what the halacha states is that the burial right? Let's say, for example, what day is today? Today's Wednesday. So somebody passes away today and they've got buried today, right? So what happens is today is the first day of Avelut, right? As long as they sat Avelut, even for a few minutes before Shekiah, they did Avelut. Okay, perfect. So they did Avelut today. So today is Wednesday. So Wednesday is day 1. Thursday, Friday, Shabbat, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Tuesday morning is the 7th day, right? Tuesday is the 7th day. They don't have to wait, right? Even from the morning. Mamash baboker. Right after Shachrit, Miktzat Hayom Kekulo, and what happens? They would get out of Avelut. We take them out of Avelut. They go to the cemetery, they do everything in the morning. The exact same halacha applies on the 30 days. On the 30 days, it's also Avelut for Shoshim Yom, exact same thing. When it finishes the 30 days, on the night before, they do the Mishmara, or they call the Berachot and all those things. The next morning, they get out of the Avelut of the 30 days. Obviously, for parents, there's no Avelut of 30 days, it's a year. But for example, for siblings, brothers and sisters, right? Or for example, for children, or husband and wife, all those things, it's only 30 days. The only one which is 12 months is the father and the mother. Other than parents, it doesn't exist more than 30 days. So the same thing with 30 days. Once 30 days comes, they finish the Avelut on the 30th in the morning, Mitzat Hayom Kekulo, and that's it.
Somebody's not buried yet, but he's on his way to Israel. They could start the Avelut from the moment that he gets into the plane.
So it depends. Sometimes what happens is that there's a big machloket in this. Sometimes yes and sometimes not. Many times, for example, if the Gadol Mishpacha is going, which means the elder of the Mishpacha is going there, so therefore once they leave, so then sometimes the ones which are back could do that, could actually start. Because basically now they're not in charge of it anymore, right? There is another inyan also that many times, if it already passes too long of a time and they don't have to do anything anymore, so then they will start right away. So there was a case recently, right, where it happened that they sent them off to Israel, and it was actually very amusing because I told him that he had to start Avelut right away. Rabbi Koskas told him he had to start Avelut right away. Rabbi, the one from the rabbi from there's another rabbi. No, Rabbi Shimon. There's in North Miami Beach. I forgot his name now. But also, what? No, Rabbi Salman. There was another rabbi. I forgot the rabbi's name. But basically, there was another one also that told him the same thing. But he got his psak from his rabbi. So okay, fine. So that's yeah, it was like 3 or 4 days. But it could be a problem even according to some shittot, because then what happens is, what about tefillin? What about this? What about that? So because if it's such a long time, so then anyway. But again, there's different machlokot. Some people say that the second that they take him to the thing, that's it. They departed from the body, and then that's it.
No, is the shul law observed today also? The shul were not taking off the shoes?
Of course, they're not allowed to wear regular shoes. It's like Tisha B'Av or Kippur. So they put on, how do you call it? They put on like, Crocs, flip-flops. They put on all these things. Yeah, okay, fine. Hahu de Amar. Yeah, it says over here like this. Now that we're still talking about the akpada of being careful with our language. So it says over here like this. Hahu de Amar. Dunu dini, right? There was a person that in any single time that there was an argument, he would say, let's judge it in bedin. Yeah? So therefore, right, he wouldn't agree with anybody unless there was dayanim. Right? There was a person like that. So it doesn't matter what happened, no matter what, judgment. Yeah? Dayanim. No, dayanim. A dayan is a dayan and a rav is a rav. Right? So Amri, they said, Shema Mina, we learn from here, Midan Kate, that he obviously comes from Shevet Dan. Right? Why? Because it says over there, right, that they are going to be Zocheh, Lotzia Dinam Laor, Ulasik Tzedek Latzmam. Tichtiv Dan Yadina Mo, Ka'achat Shiftei Yisrael. So therefore, obviously, this guy comes from Dan. Meaning the fact that he always wants judgment, he always wants bedin, for sure he comes from Shevet Dan. Okay? Ha'udava Ka'azil V'amar. So there was somebody that was going on the way, and he said, Akef Yama Asisne Birata. On the Chof HaYam, Ekva et Armoni. So imagine right now, right, I'm driving by, right, whether it's Golden Beach or whatever it is, and all of a sudden I say, right here on this part, I'm going to build my palace. Yeah, that's what he said. I'm going to build my palace over there. So what happened? Badku, they checked him. He comes from Zevulun. Why? Tichtiv Zevulun lechof yamim mishkon. He liked the sand of the sea because that's Zevulun. So obviously, if he wants to build his palace over there, it means a what? He comes from Shevet Zevulun. Fine. Now we're going back to what we said in our Mishnah, because we finished the concept of the speech, of being careful with our speech. And now we're going back to the concept of the Mishnah to do with the word or, right? That we want light, okay? So v'hashta dekamilan delechule alma or urtahu, but now that we just established that according to everybody, or means nighttime, michti, so meaning our Mishnah, yeah? So michti, let us see, ben Rabbi Yehuda, ben Rabbi Meir, whether according to Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Meir, chametz eno asur ela mishesh shaot ulmala. So chametz is only going to be asur from the 6th hour, zmaniyot, and onwards, which is basically chatzot. Remember, 6 hours is chatzot, because chatzot is half the day. So if the day is 12 hours into the day, chatzot is 6 hours into it, and then that's it. So comes the Gemara and says, right, v'nivdok b'shit. So why don't we check on the 6th hour, right? So he says, basically, why are we coming? We're doing it so early. So says the Gemara, v'chitem, and if you're going to tell me, zrizim makdimin lemitzot, which means zrizim makdimin lemitzot means that people always should be running to do the mitzvot. So nivdok mitzafra. So fine. So at least check in the morning. But you don't have to check in the nighttime before. Right? On the 8th day, you're going to do brit milah. Tanya, we learned, right? We learned in a braita. You could do brit milah the entire day. But you do it immediately in the morning. Why? Because that's why there's an inyan to do like nets, and then immediately after the nets, you do, right, the brit milah. Why? That's the earliest that you could do it, right? So what do you do? So basically the question is, why are we doing it the night before? Just do it the same morning. So Amar Nachman bar Yitzchak says, Nachman bar Yitzchak,
This is for the
Berikat Chametz. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. That's how we started the Mishnah. Yeah. So he says, huh? So it says, V'shah b'shemene adam mitzuim v'vatehem or aner yafeh lebdika. He says like this. He says, during the time when Bnei Adam are found in their houses, then, right, and it's also another reason, is because that's when the oraner is yafeh lebdika. Which means there's two reasons why Chachamim, there's two reasons why the Chachamim came and they said that you do it at nighttime and not during the daytime. Very simple. Reason number one, during the daytime, people work. Understand? People work. So they're not going to be at home. So how are they going to do it? So if they have to do it the night, so they do it the night before. Number two, right? We do it with oraner. The oraner, when's the oraner the best to look in? Obviously during the nighttime. So therefore, that's why it's going to be during the nighttime. Okay? So now he says, Amr Abaye. Abaye says, Hilkach, therefore, Hait Surbam Rabbanan, right? The rabbis, Lo liftach be'idne be'urta de'tleisa denage abesa. So therefore, he shouldn't start his limud, right, between the 13th and the 14th of Nisan before Bedikat Chametz. Dilma mashchele shmata, but maybe he's going to continue learning. Ve'ate limnu mitzvah, then he's not going to do a mitzvah. The concept of not, of not having, learning, right? But rather you do right away, you do the Bedikat Chametz. Right? No. Here we're talking about learning. Yeah? Nah. Here it's, they have their strength. They're learning with all the things. The opposite. They're going to be so engrossed in learning, they're going to forget. So, Nachman bar Yitzchak. So, Nachman bar Yitzchak comes and he asks the following. Hamaskir bayit lechavero be'arba'asar. Amli livdok. Imagine right now I'm going to rent out my house on the 14th of Nisan. Who has to check? Ala maskir livdok, right? The chamira didehu. Is it the maskir, the one that's renting it out? Why? Because it's his chametz, meaning that if the guy's going to find anything, obviously it's his chametz. Or dilma, or maybe ala sochel livdok. Maybe it's on the renter to check. The isura b'shutekai, because at the end of the day, the chametz is going to be in his reshut at the time. So Tashema, we want to bring a proof from the Braita. Hamaskir bay lechavero ala sochel lason lemezuzah. Right? What happens right now if I rent out a house to someone? Who has to put on the mezuzah? The balabait, the renter, or the one that's renting the house? So says the Gemara. Nothing to do with the Jew or not Jew. We're talking about here two Jews. No, I'm not talking about Goy.
So the balabait, he has to live in there.
What?
If balabait, obviously Jewish, he has mezuzah, he has to live in there. He cannot take it out.
Fine, but that's something else. Who's talking about that he has?
Who's
the responsibility that he? That's not the answer.
Who is the responsibility to?
I just built my house. Nobody moved in yet. I just built my house. מה סיפור אחר? זה מה שאנחנו מדברים. Okay, fine. המשכיר בא לחברו. Who has to put it on? על הסוחר לעשות מזוזה. The socher has to put it on. right? Why? Because basically the mitzvah, right, which is needed for the house, is on the socher. So says the Gemara, right? He says over here like this.
But also the one that's leaving the house, he's selling.
בדיוק, אבל הוא אומר לך פה שזה חדש, אין דבר כזה. זה העניין.
Doesn't he sell his house? He sell the chametz, and then he goes. For example, there's people in North Miami Beach that they do this. They go to Orlando and they rent their house to people that come from New York.
Okay.
It happens. I know.
No, a lot of people have that. Okay.
Exactly. So the one that's going to.
But here we're not talking about mechirat chametz. We're talking about bedikat chametz. Who has to do the bedikah?
But if he leaves 2 days before.
Okay, that's something different. But here we're talking about on the 14th. What?
Yeah.
Here we're talking about on the
So
14th.
that's the morning.
Which one?
That's the morning.
No, because if it's already too late, it's already too late.
Sorry. That's the morning where Pesach is the night. Meaning, if like this morning and tonight is the seder, that's when we leave.
That's 14.
That's 14th. Yes.
אז החוק של 30 יום לא תופס הרב?
Okay.
No, it's a different halakha to do with this. We're going to learn it later on.
מחילה,
Yeah.
סליחה.
So says the Gemara, Hatam, over there to do with the chiyuv of mezuzah, Hamar of Meshasher says mezuzah chovat hadarhi. There the mezuzah is on the chova, on the person that's living in the house. And that's why it's mutelet. It's not on the house. It's the person living in the house. Meaning if I just built a house, yeah, or I just come and I buy a new house. Yeah, and beforehand it was a goy living there. Yeah, so there's no mezuzot. Now I'm not gonna live there. Why? I have my house. I don't want to move from my house. I have my house. So what am I gonna do? Rent it out. I rent it out to a Jew. Yeah, he has to put it on. Why does he have to put it on? Because at the end of the day, right, it's on the chovat adar. It's not a chovat on me. Right? It's not a chovat on the house. It's not that the house has to have a mezuzah. It's the person living in the house has to have the mezuzah. Hacha, but here to do with bedikat chametz, mine. What's the halacha to do with bedikat chametz? Who did they put it on at the end of the day? Did they put it on the maskir or the socher? So Amar lehu Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Tanina, we also learned in a writer. Hamaskir bait lachavero. You rent out your house to your friend. Imad shelo masar lo maftechot shel ba'asar achal al ba'asar. If he didn't give him the keys, it's already the 14th. Ala maskir livdo. So therefore, because basically what happened? If he's coming here already on Erev Pesach, when is he going to do bedikat chametz? You had to do bedikat chametz the night before.
Exactly.
So therefore, he does it, right? However, though,
So the balabai does.
the balabai does it. But if he gave him already the keys, now it comes the 14th. Ala socher livdo. So then it's the socher that he has to check. Okay,
The question should be who should clean the house.
the cleaning is not a problem.
Bedikat chametz is not-
Cleaning is not a problem. It has to be clean. Ba minem Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. So yes, from Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Hamaskir by lechavero bar ba'asar cheskato baduk or en cheskato baduk. What happens now, right? Because beforehand we had the question about who should check it. Now the question is, what happens now if I didn't ask the person that rented out the house? Yeah. So all of a sudden I come and I rent out from the house from him, and I get here when? On the 14th. Is it already cheskato baduk or not? Meaning, do I say that for sure he probably already checked it, right? Just like the Chachamim just say. Or do I say, no, maybe I have to do it now. Lemay nafkamina. What's an nafkamina? Ishuyule. Do I have to ask him?
If you get there on the 14th and you ask and he says, "Oh, I forgot because I'm going to Orlando," what happens? You have to do it.
So then it will be a problem, yeah.
No, but you don't do it. You do it in the morning.
Yeah.
You can do it still in the morning.
You're allowed to do it. If a person forgot to do it in the night time, he's still able to do it in the morning. Yeah. Okay. So says the Gemara, "Deleta lehaidi leshuyele." He says the maskir is not here to ask him. So now what's the lacha? La truche lahaimai. Do we tell him again, check again because of the safek, or not? Because again, beforehand we just said, so what's an afkamina? Do you have to ask or not? Because if you say cheskato baduk, there's a chazakah, I don't even have to bother asking. If you're going to tell me that there's no chazakah, so then you do have to ask. So therefore he went and he said, okay, fine, but anyway, he's not here to ask. So what's halakha? Do I tell him to do it again or not? So Amaleu Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Tinitua, we already learned it also. Hakol ne'emanim biur chametz. Everybody's going to be ne'eman on biur chametz. Afilu nashim, afilu avadim, afilu ktanim. Even women, slaves, and children. Ma'ita ma'mehemne. Why are they believed? At the end of the day, they're psulim le'edut. Meaning, I don't accept testimony from a woman or from a child or from a slave. So therefore, why should I all of a sudden believe them to do with biur chametz? So says the Gemara Masechet on Daf Daled Amud Bet. La mishum decheskato baduk, isn't it because we already have a chazakah that it's already baduk, The kasavar, because they hold the kol chaverim hem etze bedikat chametz. Everybody's chaverim to do with bedikat chametz. The Tanya is we learned in a brayta. Chaver shemet v'niach megula melea perot. Imagine right now you have a chaver. Remember, a chaver usually is a tamid chacham or somebody that's believed on masrot. He passes away and he left an otzar full of fruits. So what happens is we don't know if he actually took off maser or not, if he tithed them or not. So afilu em bnei yoman, even if it's going to be bnei yoman, harem bechizka metukanim. That means even if he plucked it on the same day, there's a chazakah, he gave the maaser immediately. Why? You don't wait from giving maaser. You give it immediately. So for what happened? Chazakah. Yeah? So says the Gemara, umimai. How do you know then that all the houses are going to be bechizka bedukim? Din mashaneacha mishum de kamri hani. Right? Maybe it's going to be different because not everyone is considered chaverim to do b'dikat chametz. So for it's not the same, right? It's not the same halacha. So he says, atu amira dehani nide meshashu itba. He says what? Because of these sayings, meaning because of the women, slaves, or children, if they're going to say these things, we're even going to pay attention, right? It doesn't help. And still the Braita is saying that you don't have to check the house. So obviously the reason why is because obviously it's cheskato baduk. Okay, therefore you don't have to check it. So says the Gemara, elamai de cheskato baduk. Obviously you have to say that there is a chazaka that it's baduk. So then what does it mean when it says akol neimanim then? Right, what does it mean everyone's believed? It's not true. Ela kol bati b'cheska beduka, bedukim b'arba'asar mibayle. It should have just said, every house is cheska baduk. Because it's not because be'emet I'm believing them. I'm really not believing them. The only reason why I'm believing them is anyway is the chazaka. So since it's a chazaka that it's already baduk, that's why I'm going to believe them. So says the Gemara, elamai, but rather, mishum aminad dehani. It is because of what they just said. So halo amre hani, but if they didn't say it, I wouldn't be able to say that chazkato baduk. So tivsho mina. So why don't we just say en chazkato baduk? That it's not baduk then. So basically, we're trying to go back and forth. The Gemara brings a braita that we believe women, children, and slaves. Usually, we know they're not believed. So the fact that the Gemara says that they're believed, it's mashma. The what? That it's not baduk, and you're believing them. But then we said, but it doesn't help because you never believe them. So then you have to say no. The chazakah is that it is baduk, and therefore whatever they're saying is nothing. So then why are they saying anything? Just say it's always chazkato baduk. So the fact that it's saying that they're believed, mashma the bemet chazkato is not baduk, and you are actually believing them. So it says Gemara, lo leolam em alecha chazkato baduk. Maybe I'm going to tell you bemet that it is baduk. But what are we dealing with? That we have a chazakah the opposite way, that there was no bedika. The ka'amri yahani, and these people are saying, but kineh, that we did check it. We checked it ourselves. So ma'u the time I would have thought to say, the rabbis aren't going to believe them. Since bedikat chametz b'derabanan. Why is bedikat chametz b'derabanan? Because midoraita b'bitul be'alma sagile. It's already enough to do bitul. Meaning that midoraita, all you have to do is bitul. What's bitul? Kal chamila diika b'shutit. It's right. Oh, that's already enough. Once I do bitul, that's already enough. Why do I do bedikat chametz? So bedikat chametz was maybe you're going to find a nice piece of chametz, a good piece of chametz, and then what are you going to do? You're going to pop it in your mouth. And then you annul the entire bitul. So therefore, because of that, you do bedikat chametz, but that's midrabanan. So therefore, himnu rabbanan b'derabanan. So the rabbis believe them in the rabbanan. Okay?
You're allowed to believe it.
Yes, because they're the rabbanan. Okay? So now it says the Gemara like this. So now we're going to ask the following question. If you're going to rent out a house to your friend with a chazakah that it is baduk, right? And you found that it wasn't baduk. What's halacha? Miyavi mekach ta'ut or not? Is it considered mekach ta'ut or not? Imagine right now, right? I come and I'm going to rent a house from him. Erev Pesach, he's going to Montreal, and I come and I rent out his house. So I get there on the morning Erev Pesach, and all of a sudden, obviously, if I get there the morning of Pesach, who did the b'dikat chametz? The balabait had to do it. But the balabait, he was going to Uman. He didn't have his head on his shoulders. So what happened? Huh? Yeah, so what happened? Yeah? Well, they all... Yeah, so what happened? Right? So what happens is that all of a sudden, right, I realize it's not baduk. So now I'm going to have to start doing the b'dikah. So it's considered mekach ta'ut. Can I come and say, you know what? That's it. Give me my money back. I'm going to the next door neighbor. Yeah, he's got a better deal. Why? Because he did the b'dikat chametz. Yeah, well, I'm going to start also doing cleaning. I'm also your cleaner. I'm already renting out the house, and I also have to do this. Is it a mekach ta'ut or not? That's the question. It's a mekach. It's a purchase, which was a mistake. Right? A purchase, which is a mistake. there's a concept in halakha that if you buy something and there's a mistake with it, you're allowed to get your money back, get a full
Isn't it
refund.
supposed to be a contract or something?
What?
Isn't it supposed to be a contract?
Even without a contract. If I buy from him this phone, right, and then there's something wrong with the phone, what happens? Right, doesn't recognize my face. Yeah. So what happens is he says that, right? He says that what happens is that I'm allowed to return it. Yeah, you don't need a contract, you don't need anything. You just come and you get the money back. It's called mekach taut. Okay? So Tashema, we're going to try to bring a proof. Damar Bai says, Lo mi bai be'atra de lo yave igra right ubadku. Right? We don't have to say in a place where they don't have a minhag to pay somebody else to check the house, right? But everyone does it themselves, right? Shaskhirut kayemet, that it's going to be kayam. But it's better for a person to do a mitzvah himself and not to rent somebody else to do it. But even in a place where they do pay people to do it, right? It's interesting that you found people building your sukkot, but you've never seen people doing bedikat chametz for you. Yeah, there's no.
I'm sure in the older communities they do this.
It could be. But here it's saying, but even in a place where they do have this minhag, that they would pay people to do the bedikat chametz for them, because a person would want to come and do a mitzvah with his money. And therefore, we're going to say that if he already knew that they did not do the bedikat chametz, he would actually rent out the house and he would get somebody to do it for him. So therefore, right, it says over here, it's because of another reason. It's not because of that.
Good question. Somebody that does the programs in Orlando, and you come in on the 14th of the morning, the people that are the organizers of the program are the ones that are responsible for doing the bedikat chametz for each and every single house to walk
Yes.
to do the
Yes.
bracha
Yeah.
for each and every one.
What we used to do in Spain was we used to get one of the mashkichim, and on the night of Kal Chamira, he would do b'dikot in all the room.
If you,
Again, it's a chazakah that it's clean, meaning that he's not going to take an hour in every single room. You understand? He's doing a quick, checking the fridges, checking this, here and there. But but I'm saying that the rooms were cleaned.
If you have 700-800 rooms in a program, somebody has to go through each and every one of the rooms and check it. It's the responsibility of the
balabait
of the program.
Yeah.
But the check-in is on the 30th of Nisan, then they do them all.
No, but that's only if they're there, because he's talking about that they only get there right after Pesach. What? That's the problem. We had the time. We did it.
So that means that if you arrive in the morning, that's the problem. But
If you come the day earlier, then it's your problem.
Wow.
Because
It's worth it to bring them.
yeah,
in
but
the
it's
night
already
before.
clean.
Which
The
one?
rooms are clean already.
No, but
Yeah, no, the rooms are clean.
But you have
No,
to-
but he's just saying, you're doing a quick
but you have to do
bidika.
bracha?
No, well, it depends. They don't do the bracha. So what we used to do was we used to make a bracha in our own room that anyway we were staying in, and then we used to have that in mind for everything, and then go around.
He says that okay, you bring the people to clean, but if you don't find anything in the morning, then he goes to make a taut or no?
No, that's what we're saying
No,
here.
I'm
You
asking.
already came during the morning.
No, say he didn't.
Who didn't?
The one,
Here we're talking about you came in the morning, the 14th,
yes.
and you realized that you rented Ronen's house and he didn't do the kat chametz. So you come besides all the klalot. Okay, there's no klalot anymore, right? Because now we just spoke about speaking nicely. So besides all the, okay, fine. He's already there. He's going there anyway. Okay, fine. So he comes and he says, fine. So he's already there, but now you're stuck. So you want to come and you come to Bedin, mekach taut. Why? Well, I'm going to start spending money. The Gemara says no. Since it's good that a person wants to spend money, right? He wants to do mitzvot with his money. So for what? For sure that he's not going to retract just because of that. Because he'll pay someone. They'll do the bedikat chametz. They're there in the same morning.
Perfect. That's my question. Zoom in. He didn't find it. It's the morning. People are busy. Habibi didn't find it. And then he goes to the neighbor of that guy.
No idea.
He rent the house.
Fine.
Come to the bedin. I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Here the Gemara is saying that it's not a mekach ta'u because usually, obviously, it's for another reason, and he's not telling us the real reason why he's retracting. He's probably telling us the reason because he found something. It happens all the time, right? People come to Bedin. Mekach ta'ut. Why mekach ta'ut? Because of this. Then you start grilling, right? You start grinding in. Finally, you realize that the problem is because something happened. There was a cancellation. There was a this. There was a that. There was a this. Meaning there was other reasons as well. So now, one second. Mekach taut is on the taut. It can be for something else. Meaning he could come and tell me, listen, mekach taut. Why? He overcharged me on the phone. But now, if the mekach taut is not because of that, because be'emet it was worth it. But it was only because he found another guy that was going to give him a better deal. Oh, one second. We don't say now mekach for that. Because what's going on? Just because you got a better deal? Or just because you got something else? That's not a mekach. Mekach means it was a mistake in the product, but not because of a side reason. So Tanan Hatam, we learned over there in the Mishnah, on Yudalef Amubet. Rabbi Meir says, Ochlim kol chamesh. You're allowed to eat chametz all the 5th hour. V'sorfim et chilat shesh. And you're going to start burning chametz, serefat chametz, at the beginning of the 6th hour. Rabbi Yehuda says, Ochlim kol arba. You're allowed to eat the 4th hour. V'tolin kol chamesh. You make it dependent on the 5th, and then you burn the beginning of the 6th. Techule alma miha. However, though, according to everybody, chametz, right, mishesh ha'otum al asur. Chametz from the 6th hour onwards is going to be asur. Menalan, how do we know this? So basically like this. First of all, we're learning from here that there's the end time of eating chametz. That's why in the bulletin we always write down, stop eating chametz at. 34. Yeah, whatever the time it is. Then it says, burn chametz at. Why? Because there's going to be a difference over there. You understand? Because again, here there's a machloket, whether it's the 4th hour, 5th hour, but right, for sure, 6 hours onwards, for sure it's going to be a sur. Menalan, how do we know this? How do we know that there's an isur of chametz starts from chatzot onwards? Amar Abaye says, Treka active. There's 2 psukim written. Ketiv, it's written, Shivat min soli matzav vatechem. You're not allowed to find any type of seor, of leaven, in your houses, okay, for during the 7 days. Uchtiv, and it's written, Ach v'yom nishon tashmitzu vatechem. And the first day, you're not allowed to have it. Haketzer, how do you answer this stira? One place it says only the first day. The other place says 7 days. So explain. So comes the Gemara and says, Bal rabot yom haba asali biyur. It's coming, the Yom HaRishon is already coming to include the 14th to do with biur. It's not the first day of Pesach, because the first day of Pesach is already written when it says 7 days of Pesach, right? So if it already tells you 7 days of Pesach, so for this word of Ach B'Yom Rishon is talking about the 14th. Okay, so the Gemara is going to ask, maybe it's coming to include the night of the 15th to do with biur. The Salka Dagamina, but I would have thought to say when it says Shivat Yamim, it's Yamim Ktiv, Yamim In Lelot Lo, right, which means that I'm allowed to wait until the burning of the chametz, until the morning. Kamashmanan comes to teach you, afilu lelot. When it says for 7 days, you're not allowed to have chametz, that includes the night times as well, which means the night of the 15th, which that's the first night of Pesach, you're also not allowed to have chametz. Okay, because if not, then I wouldn't have known that. Okay, so says the Gemara, ve'ema. So Hahu says, ve'ema lerabot lelecha mishasa lebiur. Sadat yomim ktiv yomim lelolo. Kamashman afilu lelot. Comes teach you even night times. So says the Gemara, Hahu lo itzich. I don't need that. Why? Says the Gemara, Daf Yomi Amud Aleph on the top, that itkash, right? Ashbatat seor lachilat chametz. There's a kesh between ashbatat seor, which means that you're not allowed to have seor in your house, and eating chametz. There's a kesh. You know what a kesh is? A juxtaposition. You know what that means? Proximity, right? Proximity. Proximity means that you have 2 things which are close by, right? So therefore, we relate the 2 halachot together. So it says over here like this, right? V'achilat chametz. Which one?
You join them to make it easier, kind of.
No, they're brought together. They're brought close together, and therefore we compare the halachot together. V'achilat chametz la'achilat matzah, which means like this. I have ashbatat seor, which means that I'm not allowed to have seor in my house, leaven in my house. It's written beside eating chametz. The eating of the chametz is written beside eating of the matzah. So therefore, right, since the time of the eating of the matzah is also the kayam of the yisur of eating chametz, so therefore you're not allowed to have it. So since the time of the eating of matzah is the 15th of Nisan, so therefore I don't need a pasuk to tell you that you're not allowed to have chametz, right? Because again, one more time, if I have to eat matzah, I'm not allowed to eat chametz. It's automatic. So if I know that I have to eat matzah when? On the night of Pesach, the first night of Pesach. So therefore, I already know that we're not allowed to eat chametz. So I don't need a pasuk for that. Okay? So hashbatat seor lachilat chametz. How do we know that you put together that you're not allowed to have chametz and eating of chametz? Right? So you're not allowed to have seor in your house and eating of the chametz. Tichtiv shivat yamim seor lo mitzvah vatechem. For 7 days, you're not allowed to have chametz in your house. Ki kol ochel machmetz v'nichrata. There's anybody that's going to come and eat chametz, he's going to have karet. V'achilat chametz. La'achilat matzah. Now, when it says achilat chametz or achilat matzah, as it's written, kol machmetz lo tochelu, don't eat chametz, bechol ma shotochem techelu matzot. In all of your places, you're going to eat matzot. So therefore, you see that it's written the eating of the chametz close to the eating of the matzah, right? Kol machmetz lo tochelu, don't eat chametz, bechol ma shotochem techelu matzot, and all ma shotochem techelu matzot. Plus, you have the seor with the achilat chametz. Because it says, Shivat Yamim se'or lo yimetzav vatechem, ki kol ochel chametz, kol machmetz, nechata, he gets karet. So therefore, they're all compared. Uchtiv be'matzah, and it's written by matzah, ba'erev tochlu matzot. You have to eat matzot in the erev, not in the daytime. Right? The mitzvah doraita is to eat matzot on the night of Pesach, not during the day of Pesach. Right? So it says the Gemara, fine. So now we know that you don't need a pasuk specifically to teach you about having matzah, right? Oh, sorry, but having matzah, it's written mefurash, but not having mechametz on the night of Pesach. So it says the Gemara, ve'ima lerabot leila ba'asa lebiur. But maybe be'emet it's the night of the 14th to do with biur, which means that you have to do biur chametz also in the nighttime. Okay? Yeah, that's what the Gemara is asking. The Gemara is asking, why don't you do biur chametz on the same night of the kat chametz? So it says the Gemara, bayom ketiv. It's written during the daytime and not during the nighttime. So that's how you know you have to do biur chametz during the day. So it says the Gemara, ve'ima mitzafra. So maybe be'emet it's already from the morning and not from chatzot. Because here we're saying it's only from chatzot onwards. So it says the Gemara, ach. The word ach, chilek, comes and it's making a differentiation, which means that it's only partly asur, not the entire day asur. But that's why they said, matzinu arba asar shenikra rishon, shenemar barishon be'arba asar yom lechodesh. Right, because he says that they actually taught in a braita that it's written that the 14th is also called barishon. Right, so therefore, since here is the rishon, so it comes out to do the hashmatat chametz, it's on the 14th of Nisan, not on the 15th of Nisan. Meaning, that means even though it says on the Yom HaRishon, right, that you're not allowed to have chametz, Rabbi Yom HaRishon is not talking about the 15th, it's talking about the 14th. Because I already know that the 15th from the 7 days, and the 15th is part of the 7 days. You're not allowed to have the chametz in your house. Okay? Another reason why already we say that the Rishon is to do with Erev Pesach and not on the first day of Pesach. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Amar, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak comes and he says, Rishon de meikara mashma. The Rishon means from the beginning. The Amar Kab, as it says in the Pasuk, Harishon Adam Tivaled, which means Haim nolata lifnei Adam, were you born before Adam and Rishon that was born at the beginning of Sheshet Yemei Bereshit? So therefore, when it says the word Rishon, Rishon means preceding. It's not like Echad, the beginning. It's Rishon. Rishon is usually like Rishon v'lo Acharon. It's like before, something which is earlier. So Ela Me'ata, so we're going to ask a question according to this. Ulkachtem lachem. What? So therefore, I'm going to say whatever it is. It says like this, Ela me'ata, ulkachtem lachem bayom harishon. It says, ulkachtem lachem bayom harishon pri etz hadar. What does that mean? You're going to take for yourselves on the first day, pri etz hadar, which is ulav and etrog. Hachanami rishon mikara mashma. So what are you telling me? If you're going to tell me that the word rishon refers to erev chag, because whenever it's already said the 7 days, so rishon is always preceding, so what? You're going to do lulav and etrog erev chag? Or you only do lulav and etrog on chag itself, the first day of chag, not on erev chag. So says the Gemara, Shani Atam, it's different over there. Dichtiv is written in Pasuk, Usmachtem lifnei Hashem lokachem shivat yamim. Ma shvi'i lachag. When it says over there shivat yamim, when it says shvi'i, is shvi'i lachag, which means the Yom HaShvi'i over there is the 7th day of Sukkot. So to there, the Yom HaRishon is the Rishon lachag, is the first day of Sukkot. Okay, hachanami. So too by us, says the Gemara, Ketiv ach b'Yom HaRishon tashbitu shivat yamim matzot ochelu. It's written on the first day you have to stop having chametz. And 7 days you're going to eat matzot. So if it's the same thing, just like Shavi shel Pesach there is Shavi, so to Rishon is the Rishon of Pesach. Says the Gemara, no. In Ken nichtov krar Rishon. It could have just written Rishon. Har Rishon namali. What is it? The extra hey? Shema mina lech de Amran comes to teach you that which we said. Okay, which means, yeah, it comes to teach you that which we said. So he says, Yihachi. If so, we're just going to get to another few lines. It says over here, if so, Yihachi. Hatam nami harishon amali. Why do we have harishon? The two, and furthermore, hatam dichtiv. There it's written bayom harishon Shabbat Shabbaton by Shabbaton uyom Shmini Shabbaton. Ema harishon mikar mashma. So why didn't you say it's before? Because there we're talking about Chag HaSukkot. Chag HaSukkot is the only Chag that has 8 days. Think about it. Pesach is 7 days. It's not 8 days, right? We do 8 days because we're in Chutz La'aretz. But technically speaking, right, it's 7 days. Pesach is 7 days. Okay, the Shavi shel Pesach for them. That's it. They don't have Yom HaShmini. We have a Yom HaShemini, right? And for the Sukkot, right? What? Sukkot, we do 9 days. 9 days. Why? Because they do 8 days. Why do they do 8 days? Because Yom HaShemini is a Chag. So he said over here, so Shani Hatam is different over there. The Demarkab, the Pasuk says, Yom HaShemini Shabbaton, Ma Shmini Shmini Dechag. Just like it says over there, the Shmini is Shmini Dechag. So to Rishon is Rishon Dechag. Harishon amali. So why do I have the word harishon over there? Uvayom harishon, right? Why did it say harishon? The miyute cholo shel moed. To be ma'et cholo moed. That cholo moed is not, it says over here, right? Do the concept of cholo moed. What does it say here? Exactly. That there's no mitzvah min Torah to do the arba minim during chol hamoed. It's only by Yom Rishon, right? Benigul lebet hamikdash, so you have to do it every single day. And that's why a lot of people they try to take their lulav and etrog to the kotel on Sukkot, because by the Bet Hamikdash it's midoraita for 7 days. Outside of the Bet Hamikdash, it's not midoraita. So, for example, this year where Sukkot fell out on Shabbat, so therefore we didn't have a mitzvah doraita of doing lulav and etrog.
But if you're in Israel, the kotel, you can bring it to the kotel on Shabbat?
No, on Shabbat you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to at all.
Okay.
But you have doraita the rest of the days as well. That's also doraita, but only in the Bet Hamikdash. Okay, so the Gemara just says Chol Moed, right? 1 second, Chol Moed merishon nafkale. He says already the merishon and shmini nafkale. If he's telling you that rishon and the shmini, everything in the middle is Chol Moed, so I already know that it's not going to be like that. So says the Gemara, Itzich, you need it. Why? I would have thought say hold the Ketav Rachman, and since the Torah writes Uvayom Shmini Vav Mosif Al Yan Rishon Uvayom Shmini. The Vav adds on the first concept that even on Chol Moed there's going to be Isur Melacha and everything else. Kamash Malan comes to teach you that it's not. There's no Isur Melacha on Chol Moed. Again, when we're talking about Isur Melacha, we're not talking about working, because working is different. Here we're talking about Isur Melacha, of like, turning on and off the lights and doing Melacha, meaning it's not Yom Tov. Okay? So says the Gemara, Lichtov, right? Velo Lichtov Rachmana lo Vav, velo He. Right? Fine. You're saying don't write the Vav of Vuva Yom HaShmini and don't write the He of HaRishon. The two, and furthermore, Hatamu Dichtiv B'Yom HaRishon Mikakol Shelachem. Harishon, the Mikara, mashmatz Mikara. So says the Gemara, Elahani Shlosha Rishon, we need the 3 Rishons. Why do we need the 3 Rishons? One to do with the Isur Melacha on Pesach, one to do with the Isur Melacha on Sukkot, and one to do with the taking of the lulav and etrog on Sukkot. Why do I need all 3 Rishons? Because of the 3 Rishons in the Torah, Zachul Shlosha Rishons. We also got 3 Rishons. What are they? Number 1, La'achrit zaro shel Esav, to destroy the zera of Esav, to destroy the children of Esav. But that's also Rishon, as we're going to explain. Number 2, Binyan Bet Hamikdash. And number 3, Shemo Shel Mashiach. So that means because of the 3 Rishons that we have in the Torah, whether it is of working on Pesach, whether it is the working of Sukkot, or whether it is the taking of lulav and etrog, because of those 3 Rishons, we are going to be zocheh to have 3 Rishons, which is basically these 3, to destroy the children of Esav, the building of the Bet HaMikdash, and the name of Mashiach, which will continue tomorrow.